Ciao, amici. Welcome back to Calcio Culture. Match week number 8 done today with an absolute blowout, but we'll get into that in a little bit. This is Vos. Got the whole crew to here, Logs and Motts. Motts, you had an interesting stat for us there to start the day, so I'm throwing it off to you.
Quick stat of the day here. First match week, we have the same leader 2 weeks in a row. Napoli protected their lead as number 1. First time in Serie A this year, we have a leader 2 weeks in a row. Wanted to now pass it over to Logs. Let us know how those 2 dates went, Logs, last week.
Dates went well. Thanks for asking, Motts, and Vos, thanks for also wondering. Doing well, guys. 1 game a week. Won't see you Wednesday, so happy to be here. Other stat of the week, Matteo Retegui, officially the sole Golden Boot leader for the league. Vos is looking good in the Golden Boot section.
Yeah, Matteo Retegui looks really good, and we're going to talk about it later. But he looks very good. But today we're back into our normal run of things. We're going to be giving you quick shouts as always. We got match reviews, and we got some European competitions this whole week that we're going to be taking a look at. There's a ton of games this week. It's actually kind of insane. But with that, I'm handing it off to Logs for quick shouts. As always, he's here 1 game a week, so he's got to say something dumb.
Some have been calling me the king of the quick shouts, and I will happily take that title.
Who?
Happily.
Self-proclaimed?
The Paisans.
I haven't heard one.
No. The Paisans, no.
I haven't heard one.
In any case, off to the quick shouts. Off to the land of the quick shouts. We're starting it off non-footy today. Start spreading the news. Congrats to the New York Yankees making the World Series first time since 08, 09. It's kind of sweet. The city's buzzing. Vos wouldn't know, but me and Motts, we can feel the buzz. Congrats to the Yanks. Electric series. Unfortunately, no Subway Series. Mets couldn't get it done. We'll see you Dodgers in the Bronx. Keeping it in America, but going back to footy. Congratulations to another team. Inter Miami sets the MLS record for most points in a season. Who would have thought that when you put 4 Barcelona graduates onto an MLS team that you would set the record for most points in a season? Not I. I couldn't have called that. But congrats to them. They beat it out by a point, beating the previous record holder, New England Revolution. They had 74 points this season. And for whatever reason, they are the first MLS team to be invited to the FIFA World Cup, Club World Cup.
They just should not have gotten invited. That's a waste of an invite right there. They're going to do nothing.
Invited. That tournament's not even real.
I don't believe this. I think it's rigged.
The Club World Cup?
No, the MLS. I don't believe that this is real. That this is happening. It's too simple, and Messi owns half the MLS now, and Apple apparently. I mean, they're too old. They're too old to for everybody to allow this to happen.
I mean, when you do watch the team, of which I have a good amount, they're just simply way better. I mean, it's just not even close. But Messi had a hat trick in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Suarez had a brace. Jordi Alba had 2 assists. I
mean, it's 6 goals. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous at this point. So, but congrats to them. You set a record. Blah 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 blah.
Well, something interesting. My old apartment in New York. This girl lived down the hall from me, and we hung out with them every now and then. And her younger brother, went to Virginia for soccer and got drafted by Inter Miami and scored a goal for them. And he just practices with Messi, Suarez, Busquets, and Jordi Alba. How crazy is that?
That is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
That is insane.
That's pretty cool, though.
It is.
But in any case, more quick shouts to be had. And Victor Osimhen is still making headlines all the way from Turkey. His goal was absolutely insane. World-class, worldy, different gravy. I don't even know what to say.
I'm just hoping he comes back to Serie A at this point. He's going to be on another team in January. It's probably you would think it's the Premier League because that's where he wants to go, but I don't really see a team that is going to want. The only team that really I could see this happening with was Chelsea, And now Nicholas Jackson's playing very well. So I don't think that one's going to happen. And I don't even think they would pick him up, Osimhen up, because they're very similar players in what they do. And the more I'm thinking about this, the more I think it's possible that Juve actually can do this if they really wanted to.
There's Juve in the mix. There's PSG, but PSG could have done it in the summer, but he was a little bit more money than maybe Arsenal. Who knows? There's still pretty long ways away till December or January, and we don't even know if he's going to get moved in January. So we'll see. But the saga is definitely not over. But great goal by Osimhen.
Well, another saga that continues to live on throughout the years, even when he's not playing. Motts, what is Juve saying about their newly unsuspended midfielder?
Paul Pogba. I think this is going to conclude the saga here because Giuntoli has spoken. He's put the hammer down. He said Pogba was a great player, is a great player, but the Juventus team is set and Pogba will not be playing for Juventus, which is kind of funny because then you also hear Giuntoli interested in center backs and strikers and not everybody for January, but he says that the team is set. So I'm sure Pogba will continue to try to push his way into the Juventus team, but I doubt that he ends up playing unless he significantly decreases his salary. I could see Giuntoli just pushing him out.
You should go to Como.
I
Pogba and Como would be kind
No,
of sweet.
what I would actually like to see happen with him, and I don't think Juve would do this because I'm assuming they have to literally sell him at this point, right? Like I don't think there's an option like to terminate his contract or anything really. I mean, I guess they probably could, but
I
I
have no
think
idea.
what would actually make a lot of sense, and this is only if Pogba is still feeling like very competitive, is going to Napoli. I actually think it would be a very good fit to play as that cam, like when McTominay, like that McTominay kind of role. And I think he would elevate them in those games where they're going to have a lot of the ball. But
I don't know how
I
realistic that
I
is.
don't see Pogba wanting to do that
Yeah,
really.
I
and
also don't think he should play for Conte.
in the interview, he played for Conte before when he was younger, but
Yeah,
in
it
the
was like 10
interview,
years ago when he had legs.
still. And anyways, in the interview, they didn't ask him about Napoli. They asked him if he played for Milan. He said, "No, I'm a Juventini." Obviously, it's different when the sporting director says you're not a Juventini, like you're not on the team. So anything could happen. I could just see Pogba going to fuck off in Saudi and collecting a major bag. But also in the interview, he said like, "I'm motivated. I'm ready to go." So we'll see. But
What I
probably the last of Pogba for a little bit is what we'll.
before we move on from Pogba, this is going to be one of my two rants today because I was thinking about this weekend when I saw the Giuntoli thing. The whole story of Paul Pogba is forever going to be what could have been, like really. And he won a World Cup, he won a Euros, he won the Scudetto, and it's still like what could have been. Like if he had stayed at Juve, if he had literally done anything but gone to Man U, like this, it's the same thing with Neymar. Like he made the wrong decision and he's going to be forgotten for a large array. I think Pogba is going to be mostly forgotten, regardless of what he's done, because everybody's going to look back at what he did wrong.
Well,
Manchester
people always
United
remember.
killed careers.
Kill
They
careers.
do.
And
Kill
I do
careers.
kind of feel like on like a human level, I feel bad for Pogba because like again, like these guys, we talk about them on here, but like he so clearly has been wanting to like held the Man U thing so deep that he felt like I had to go back there to like prove myself. And then he went back to Juve to kind of like regain what he was, and he dropped the ball there. And now he's like, oh, I still want to stay. And then the management is like, we don't want you. And he's just, it's like it's just a tough situation. Like, I feel bad for him because I think we all love Pogba. I mean, Motts bought a Pogba jersey like how long ago?
Pogba's jersey's in the black one hanging up behind me. Yeah, I mean, he was Pogba for Juventus. What he gave to Juve was just, I think, nothing but great things, right? We won multiple Scudettos, 2 Champions League finals with Pogba. Then we got him for free, sold him for 100 million. Then he came back to us for free. So, I mean, he really just helped Juve win trophies, gave him a ton of money, and then came back to him for free. So, I like Pogba. I know some Juve fans aren't the biggest fans of him anymore, but he sacrificed a lot for Juventus and has said nothing but glowing things about Juventus in the interview and since he left and since he's came back. So, I really like him. I appreciate him. Feel bad for him, but that's what happens when you go to Manchester United. And I think players should learn, like, hey, listen, sure, Manchester United might be the sexy play, but it not always works out. Look at Xerxes, look at Hoyland, even other players that go to other Premier League teams, right? That is not always the best, smartest move, going to make a little bit more money, but then your career derails.
Career over money any day of the week for me. I don't care.
Moving
That's
on.
also because if I was making anywhere near what soccer players make, I wouldn't be mad at all.
Yeah, that's true. But moving on, this is going to be a tangent that all three of us want to talk about. The refs' performance in match week 8 was nothing short of abysmal. Terrible. No consistency between any of the games with any of the fouls. There was red cards given that shouldn't have been given. There was red cards not given that should have been given. There was VAR checks that nobody knew what was being checked. And then there was VAR checks that should have been checked but didn't get checked. We'll go into all these details while we break down the games. But the refs, I mean, we talked, I think it was match week 6. We were talking how good the refs have been, 7 and 8. Oof. Talk about a terrible, terrible job.
Yeah, what I think happened was because match week 7 is when it started being bad. And I think Motts, me and you were on here and we were talking about, okay, they got to come together and say, this is what we're going to stick by. Like, this is a foul, like, this is a penalty. And what seems to have happened is every ref was like, oh, this was the confusion. They were like, okay, this is now the new level of what penalties are. This is what VAR reviews are. And then on the other side of things, some refs were like, oh, I don't want to be the guy that's like giving out a red card to change the game. And it just turned into nobody was doing anything correct. And it just derailed everything.
And I think you hit it on the head with just consistency, right? You got to get the refs together, get them in a room, go over. This is what we're giving as a foul. This is what we're not giving as a foul. Do you want to decide a game on a PK, whether it's a red card or not? Do you want to call a ticky-tack foul in the box or not? You got to get on the same page and organize, because you can't call it in one game and then not call it in the other, because these points matter. And before you know it, like, because of what happened this week, Napoli could jump out to a 5-6 point lead after next week because Juve and Inter play each other, right? And I would say Napoli benefited from a very, very soft PK to win that game against Empoli, where Roma maybe didn't, or not Roma, Inter didn't benefit from a foul that probably should have been given as a PK. So it goes to show, like, these calls or no calls affect how the table will look in the long run. So you got to get on the same page and call consistently.
Yeah, and the other piece of this is VAR, because I think that's a whole separate kind of conversation. And when we talk about a specific game, I think we'll get into it a little bit more. But we're kind of at the point where the problem with VAR is, now that it's been implemented, it's like cat's out of the bag. It's really hard to now like kind of walk it back from where it is. But it's very much affecting the excitement of the game. And this weekend, it was really bad.
Yeah.
And some rule somewhere needs to be rewritten around this, because it's ridiculous at this point. And soccer's always been a game that's supposed to favor the attacker. Like, why are we now like going off of centimeters? It's just frustrating, really.
I mean, my biggest problem with VAR is the fact that the idea of it is supposed to make it so that it's 100% objective. It's supposed to just be fact. It's robotic. So the fact that these reviews go on for 2 minutes, like two minutes of game time, then they pause it, then they bring over the center ref to look at it. Like, the center ref should not be looking at VAR. It should just be called by the refs upstairs, because, again, it's supposed to be objective. It should not just be opinionated based on one given person for that day. And I think that that's where the inconsistency comes from, because on any given day, as we've seen it without VAR, refs don't know how to call the same fouls from game to game. And so, from my perspective, the way to fix this is just let the refs upstairs make the VAR calls and leave it to them.
But they have to make them quicker, because it's ridiculous how you go, they don't, the middle ref does not make the call, and you go, let's use a PK for an example. They don't make the call for a PK or a handball in the box, and you play for another 3 minutes. and you're not stopping the game. You're just allowing it to go on, and then all of a sudden you're going back and revisiting something that happened 3 minutes ago. So it just breaks up the game. Looks terrible. It's like no one is actually really playing because they're all pleading for the penalty or the handball to be reviewed. Everyone's like, what is going on? The game's in limbo. So there's got to be quicker decisions, more consistent decisions. It's just not good.
On like the length of time to that gets us to the decision. I think that's a really good representation of where we're at, because the bar for VAR was clear and obvious, right? And if you can't look at something for 15, 20 seconds, then it's not clear and obvious. Like if it takes 15 seconds to review something, that's all you need to make the decision. And if you can't, there's not a clear and obvious error, move on. I would like to see that implemented for offsides. I don't like the drawing the lines kind of thing. I would like to be we have like the view of the line. I look at it for 15 seconds. If I can't see the guy's offside, he's onside. Like onsides in soccer isn't meant to be like in hockey where it's like this narrow margin or like another sport. It's supposed to just keep the pace of the game where it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to stop you from scoring off of inches. It's like, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But they even fixed it. I mean, not to get on a tangent about another sport, but they even fixed it in hockey. And we've talked about this before, whether it be offline or on the pod. It just needs to be one body part. Like the idea is that you're not cherry picking. That's the whole idea of offsides, really. And so if you're not clearly and obliviously behind the defensive line, it shouldn't matter. Like there's no clear advantage from that, and that's what the point of the foul, like a penalty / foul, is. And again, it goes back to clear and obvious.
Yeah,
that's all. That should just be the metric.
I want to wrap up this conversation so we don't bring it up when we get to Milan right now, because this is what really bothered me on the weekend, and this is the one I just want to talk about quick because we're here. In the Milan game, Udinese had like a 90th minute equalizer. It was very late in the game. It may have not been quite that late. It was something insane. And the goal got reviewed, and I think me and Motts were watching the game, and we were like, what is even being reviewed? Like, what's going on? They didn't show us anything that was happening. I don't think the commentators knew what was going on. And then all of a sudden, they just called off the goal and started playing. And like 2 to 3 minutes later, we get the image of what was offsides. And it was like a skin cell of the toe was offsides, essentially. Like, it's actually insane how narrow this margin was. And that is ruining the integrity of the game.
It is. It ruins the celebration that Udinese had. It stopped the game. We had to wait around for another 5 minutes, and Udinese is not going to go get that time back on the clock in stoppage time. They got to figure something out, because I get the whole point of VAR and of those lines, but it's ruining the game, and it's making it terrible. And it's also ruining the Colpi, because that had a direct effect on the Colpi, because I lost my leg because Milan got a red card, and then so on and so forth. But it's ruining Colpis. It's ruining the game. As we transition this into the Culpi check-in of last week, what a shit show we're just as bad as the refs when it comes to picking games.
No, I'm blaming this on international break. A lot of these teams didn't look great coming out of the international break. We didn't look good on the Culpi coming out of the international break. We had a week off. That. We came in a little slow. Mine was terrible, and we'll talk about it. I had Verona money line at home against Monza. Did not go even close at any point my way.
Yeah.
I think Verona's fake news at this point, considering that result.
I'm leaning that way as well now.
Well, when in our power rankings, Logs, when you missed that week, we talked about how Verona look good but can never actually get the result that they need in a lot of games, and that hurts them, and it happened again today. But
that sounds like fake news.
My leg, Udinese at Milan, over 2.5, looked good at the start. Milan scored off the bat. Then the red card happened. I thought for sure Udinese was going to at least get one. Didn't get one. I haven't hit a leg since August. It's been tough for me. So hopefully we can bounce back. But hit my Juventus $100 bet. So that's always.
And that was the Paisan leg. Juve money line was the Paisan leg.
Yeah, the Paisan leg is kind of blowing us out. I'm not gonna lie.
But they get multiple shots at it, and we pick the best one. So that's fair to them.
Good point.
I was due for a loss, so I'm okay with that.
I should have hit. I was 1.5. I just needed one the second half, and no one wanted to score goals. So I'll take mine.
Could have, would have, but didn't.
We're not playing horseshoes and hand grenades.
We are not. And last quick shout of the day, Vos. You had something that you were very passionate about that you wanted to talk to the Paisanos about.
I was really mad about this, and I'm happy that we weren't talking yesterday about it because I think I wouldn't have been articulated it well enough. And I hope somebody from Paramount does see this. Like I genuinely mean this. I hope somebody important sees this because this really bothered me for a number of reasons, and I'm literally gonna articulate all of these reasons right now because I was so upset about
Please
them.
do tell.
So I was watching. I got up early, and as we do, we get up early to watch these games because like we care about them. I was watching Cagliari Torino. Like the people that are tuning into Cagliari Torino are people that love Serie A. Like they're getting up early to watch this game because they care about the league, they care about what's going on. There wasn't a pregame. Halftime was watching Poppy Miller and Grella play bocce with some TikTokers. And no I legitimately don't mean disrespect to anybody on the show or the people that were brought on because I actually like everybody. And then they got into the Inter game, and there was a problem with Paramount. Like I couldn't watch the pregame. Apparently, Logue saw some of it, but they just didn't talk about soccer all that much. And for me, my big issue with this is if they are the representatives of the league in the United States. And for a lot of people, the Serie A is new to the United States, and some people are tuning in for the first time, and this is what they're seeing. Like this would never happen on NBC if for a Premier League weekend. Like the Premier League weekend is we're going through everything that's going on. We're going through the news. We're going through every game. We're going through every goal. And some people that tune into this is all the Serie A news that they get is this like couple minutes that these guys need to talk about the game. And I just thought it was so disrespectful to Serie A fans and just not taking the league seriously. And I just think it's insane that we come on here twice a week and we can talk about it for 2-3 hours and we cut our conversation short. And these guys who are getting paid to do this can't even do it for like 45 minutes at the most for a weekend. And it's just stunting the growth of the league. And it's just insane to me that we don't get paid to do this. We just come on here because we love it and we love the league. And yet the people that are getting paid to represent it can't even motivate, I guess, to do that. And it just bothered me so much. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I mean, like to your point, we talk about it for hours and hours on end, and they ran out of topics. You ran out of storylines. You ran out of interviews. You have the most intimate look into the league of almost anyone in the world from a U.S. perspective, and you couldn't figure out an interview to bring on anybody else besides playing bocce. Which is bocce even Italian?
Facci's definitely Italian.
Yeah, bocce is definitely Italian.
All right, at least they were playing some kind of Italian sport. But I mean, I do agree, Vos. I think the best thing you just said was that it is honestly disrespectful. It's such a poor representation of what the league could be in the U.S. You said it a couple seconds ago. You'd never see it on NBC. NBC does a great job. What I will say is, I think that they're trying to emulate something that can't be emulated, and that's the Champions League crew.
Yeah,
No,
that
no,
is
And
a
how
big
and
true.
the
You don't
Champions
need
League
to
crew.
emulate that. You don't need to emulate that.
I don't think they need to. I'm just saying that I think that's what they're trying to do, and you can't.
Who's trying to do that? NBC or
I'm saying they're trying to like add in a little bit of
No,
like light airiness
oh
that the
no.
Champions League crew does. Micah and
No, but
Carragher.
where they went wrong or that's not the case is they weren't even talking about, they were just playing bocce. Like the Champions League crew talks about stuff, and then at the end of the game they'll start guessing players and having fun with it, but they're getting players to interview with and then poking fun and joking with the players as well. Like they weren't doing that at all. And it's such an easy layout for Paramount to follow. I mean, look at any other sport in America, and it's clear. You have two guys doing the broadcast. You have 3 to 4 doing the post game and pregame. You're asking questions of 15, 20 minutes. It's doesn't take that long. How can you not find more bodies to cover it? Whether or not, like maybe they're looking at the viewership of that Calgary Torino game in streaming views, and not many people are watching it. Whether that's the case or not, like you can find somebody for cheaper than to have them come in and cover it. We will do that because it let's say you're a new fan and that's the game you stumble on because that's the game that's going. Not having that at halftime, one, doesn't educate the new fan, and two, shows them like this is a joke. Why would I continue to watch that?
that was going to be my last point about this is when I was living with Logs, like he didn't really follow like soccer as much as he does now. And like I would get up early and just like have the games on. And like then that's how we started watching it because like we were watching Premier League mostly and it was like a really good quality halftime. Like it was it educated you. And then like because you're educated, then you get involved. Like people in the US don't have a connection to any of these teams really. And there's not even a community here for people to like talk about it. Like we have a small group of friends. That's why we do this podcast. We're literally like the only three people that we know that are dedicated and watch Serie A. And again, like this is such a disrespect and embarrassment to people that are Serie A fans because if you're watching this and you're like, oh, you guys should come and like watch this game with me, and then this is what they're doing at halftime, like somebody's gonna be, people already in the US like to disrespect soccer, and then this is what you're showing to people. It's insane to me and it's embarrassing, and that's why I hope somebody at Paramount sees this because it's just unacceptable in my opinion. These are people that are getting paid to spread the sport in the United States. It's just ridiculous. And that's my second rant for the day. So I'll be done now.
Well said, well articulated. We can appreciate that. I think at this point, though, we need to put our money where our mouth is, and actually talk about the footy that happens. So.
Match reviews. Number one match review: Udinese at AC Milan. 1-0 Milan win. As we said, Fonseca is very happy with some decisions that went his way. AC Milan went up early, then got a red card. Then at the end of the game, Udinese did tie it, got called back because the skin cell was offsides. For me, the story of this is Milan got bailed out. I think the Chukwueze goal was also kind of lucky. I thought the goalie got a hand on it. I thought it could have been saved. That was a big moment for Chukwueze because we've been slamming him on how bad he's been since he joined AC, really. So I will say good for him. I do still think it could have gotten saved. And then the other big storyline of this game was no Tomori in the starting lineup and no Rafael Leao in the starting lineup, which I think we had all been calling out for a little bit.
Yeah, this game, really shaky. Unfortunate that this was the comeback game after the Fiorentina loss. You would hope to have had a stronger showing from them. I like that we were able to pull it together, and obviously that offside should have never been called, but at least we came out with the dub after playing 70 minutes, 10 men. The other pattern that I hate to be seeing is that we just took on the Parma job of having a red card every game. Last three Serie A games, we've gotten a red card. I know Teo's was technically after the final whistle, but in any case, we're still without him for a couple games. Again, I have not much to say other than we are absolutely the luckiest team in the league to be in fourth right now. There's no reason based on how we played, how we look, what our outlook is, that we should be in fourth. Just happy to be involved at this point and happy to not be in a relegation battle.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there was a lot to take away and a lot of different storylines. Like for one, loved Fonseca dropping Tomori and Leao. They haven't been playing good. Stop playing them. But then it also, I ask, how come Milan keep getting red cards? Where's the discipline there? Like, is that on Fonseca? Who's that on? Right? Why do you keep getting red cards? But then I go to before the red card, they looked very good. They looked like they were going to get 3 goals. They were firing on all cylinders. After the red card, great adjustment. Down 10 men for 70 minutes, and you did not let a goal up until the 94th, 95th minute. That obviously got called back. I don't necessarily agree with it being called back, but Milan were still compact and still creating opportunities, even down 10 men. If Tammy Abraham has a brain, he puts that rebound in, and Milan are up 2-0, and then can probably see the game out. So I thought Fonseca did a great job starting the lineup with new players, new faces, that some of those staples of the lineup that didn't deserve it, he took out, right? I thought he did a great job in-game adjusting with 10 men for 70 minutes. But it just asks, the only question I have with him is like, why do your guys keep getting red cards? There's a little bit of like defiance per se in Milan, and that could very well be because Leao and Tio are your leaders.
Definitely, that's a very good point. It could be that. On the whole Fonseca thing, at this point, do you guys kind of agree we have to go a little bit foot off the gas on mashing him? Because last 5 games, 4 wins, 1 loss. Like at the end of the day, you can't argue results. And That it doesn't really get much better than that.
I don't know. I just don't. You need the manager to really set the tone. Yes, on the field, Leao, Teo had been the leaders of the past. I think Pulisic has actually stepped up quite a bit in that space, just because he's one had the opportunity and two can back it up. But it really needs to come from the top, and it's unfortunate that we don't have that figure anymore. I mean, again, I go back to how often I hate on Pioli, but at least the players respected him and listened to what he was trying to do, and they had a culture going. My foot's definitely not off the gas. I need to see results that we don't just get lucky from. We'll see how I think. I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit. I really do think this Club Bruges game is extremely important, and I do have a good feeling about it. I think that we're going to look great, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
I think foot's off the gas. I like what he's doing. He's trying to show the team, like, listen, I don't care if you're Rafael Leao, you're gonna get benched if you're not playing well. Tio got benched as well. He's had some. I just think that maybe the guys in the locker room don't necessarily give him the type of respect he deserves because of all those defiant issues and people taking the penalty when Pulisic is the guy that they named, and they're taking it away from him. They're doing the water cooler break, and that low key could come back to Zlatan, right? We don't know. I'm sure Zlatan is a very tough guy to work with, being that he is that alpha personality and thinks he's got the biggest cock in the room at all times. And I'm sure he undercuts Fonseca a good amount. And I'm sure that having him do that has the players think they can do that as well, right? And if Ibra's giving special treatment to Leao or undercutting whatever Fonseca is saying, it's like, hey, I can do whatever I want with, you know what I mean? And there's no repercussions because it's Ibra's word, not Fonseca. So it could be a little bit of that. I have no idea. I just completely speculating that. But and to answer the question, my foot is off the gas because I think he's done a very good job managing a lot of chaos within Milan and getting you guys to fourth place right now.
Fair
Can't
enough.
argue with fourth place.
Yeah, you really can't argue with that. On Udinese side of things, on the wrong side of some unfortunate calls, but I also think when you're up a man for that long, they did not create enough opportunities. They should have created a lot more opportunities than they did. And even then, they kind of conceded a lot of opportunities, which was kind of alarming for me. As good as Udinese have been, it was weird. And this is going to be the theme of the weekend. A lot of weird tactics the whole weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if you're up a man for 70 minutes, you got to at least get one. And I know they did get one, but like you got to get one that actually counts. And I'll have a similar take on that on my favorite team when we get to them. You got to get more than one. But listen, at the end of the day, this is Udinese. This is a team that we're talking about. Last season, I think we're 2 points away from relegation. From last season and this season, it's night and day how much better they've been. Milan is a tough team. It's in the San Siro. You probably should have gotten the point. I think they played well enough to get the point. I think the point was taken away from them, so it looks a little bit worse for them. But you can see that they have a belief in what they're doing. They're playing well. They're much better than last year. Don't let this affect you. Keep rolling. You should have got a tie, but you didn't. Now move on to the next one.
Can I, not to belabor the point, and I know Vos hates when I go back on things, but I just saw the replay of Reiner's red card. That's not a fucking red card.
It's
I mean,
accidental, but it's justifiable. I think he's the last man on the fence. He hits the guy's leg. It's definitely not. It's definitely accidental, but you got to give that red. I mean, if he touches that,
Shaw's pretty even with him. I can see a yellow, but there's 0 and 10. I mean,
Yeah, but
0 and 10.
10 isn't.
Shaw's right there.
that's why I said Chaw's not there. It's accidental, but it's a red. He is the last.
In any
man.
case, in my opinion, my unbiased opinion, we got a makeup call on the offsides. So I'll take that.
All right, we're going to another game that had a red card. Lazio at Juventus. Juve squeaked this one out, Motts. They were up a man for almost the whole game, and it came down to an own goal. That was a very bad own goal, I will also say. Juan Cabal whipped in across. I think it was Marusic who had tried to clear it at the front post, just whiffed. If he had just let it go, it was going straight to the goalie. Absolutely fucked it up and just knocked it into the net. And outside of that, Juve did not have a ton of chances, I don't think.
They did not, and as I just mentioned, I'll say it again. You're up one man with 70 minutes left, and I'll add the layer that you are Juventus and you have the players of the caliber that you have. You need to score more than one goal, and you need to score that goal cannot be an goal. You need to have at least two. Yes, I get it. You got a lot of guys that were banged up, but the players that you had out there were better than Lazio's players, and you did not get the job done. What Juventus's issue was, in my opinion, in this game is their lack of, I don't want to say intensity, but just like the pushing the ball up. Like every time they were about to start a counter, they would just stop, hold up, and allow Lazio to get back in their shape. And Lazio were very compact and played very strong defensively, which I think is the first time we saw that under Baroni or Baroni, right? But so that was good by Lazio. But Juventus, you got to realize, hey, you're up a man. We got to get them on the counterattack. We got to get them when they're not in their shell. And I thought that the person that did it a lot was Locatelli would get it, and instead of pushing it out wide to the next guy, hold it up and allow Lazio to sit back. And yes, you're up a man, but if you're going to allow a team to sit back in their shell, it's going to be tough to break them down, even though you're up a man.
Well, you kind of touched on the two questions that I had. Number one was this theme of Juve. I don't even know what the word is, like lacks a daisical in possession kind of thing. What is the mentality of the team right now? Because they have the ball a ton, and I get that they're not conceding, but
They're also not
there's
creating that
there's
much
such a
for the amount they have the ball.
such a small desire to go and get the goal. And I don't know if that's because they're relatively young and they're kind of like thinking they're like the shit and are just going to out like skill teams a little bit. That might be it. Like, what do you think it is that they're not like, I'm going to pick up the ball and we're going to go score? Chiesa would do it. That's what I will say.
It's tough to say. I mean, going back to Mata, I know that Bologna last season had a very low expected goals systems or expected goal on the season. So I think maybe this Mata system that he has isn't necessarily the high pace. Let's go try to score as much as we can. It's more, let's try to possess it and defend strongly, and then hopefully we do break some teams down and score. But I don't know what it is, because they clearly stop when they have an opponent on the back foot. They stop and allow them to get in their low block, and it just makes it harder for them to break them down, right? Like you only have like Cambiaso when he looks to push. Yildiz when he looks to push, but Yildiz's issue is he dribbles too much and then he gets muscled off the ball when he dribbles too much. Coop Miners is a guy who looks to push it, but he was out. Douglas Luiz, we've talked about, he's been struggling. So I just think there's things that need to be ironed out on the Juventus side in terms of when they're in possession and how to break the low block down.
Yeah, and the other thing that you touched on that I do want to talk about, and I think Logs has kind of been saying this for a while, is Locatelli good enough to even be considered for the 11 with the players that these guys have? Like after this game, that was one of my big takeaways is I don't think he is close to the level of these other midfielders who would be like your number one group in my mind at this point.
My problem with Locatelli is how I've always seen him is as a holding six defensive midfielder. From everything that I talked to Motts about how Locatelli wants to play and how he operates in his brain, is that he's an attacking midfielder. And so that to me screams that he's just kind of lost in translation. He doesn't have a spot on the field, which then you're like, okay, so he's an 8, but how much ground does he really cover? Right? And so he's really just lost and it's insane because you have 3 different really like distinct archetypes of a midfielder. When you have a 3-man midfielder, you have the 10, you have the box to box 8, and you have a 6, and you can really find different middle grounds between all of them. But his skill set, and from what I perceive him to be strongest at, he doesn't want to utilize, he doesn't want to play with. And so that to me, just that mismatch makes him so ineffective where he could actually be better. He just decides to ignore what he's strongest at, in my opinion.
See, I think he's better at being higher up the field and playing as like an 8, but I agree he doesn't cover that much ground. But when he was at his best at Sassuolo, he was closer to the box. When he was at his best when Italy won the Euros, he scored 2 goals because he was closer to the box. Then Max Allegri got him, put him all the way closer to our box. And I think since then, he just cannot really find that old form. He's too slow playing as a regista. Like when Fagioli came in,
That was
Fagioli
going to
got the
be,
ball, moved,
yeah.
passed it wide, dribbled it by his guy, Locatelli, and also Fagioli makes himself available to the center backs to transition it. Locatelli hides and just, if you watch him, he just points to go pass it out wide and doesn't make himself available to then transition to break the lines. Fagioli does that. And I think that's why Locatelli's struggling. And we have Coop Miners now, who's going to be playing higher up and closer to the box. And so, yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah, I
Last
mean,
two,
you go ahead.
yeah, my last 2 points on this game that I forgot to mention in my intro to this game. We had Captain Cambiaso, which was fucking sick to see.
Quick shout on Cambiaso. He was in an interview. He's been getting interest from Real Madrid.
That's a good
And
quote.
this is great. This is a quote that would come directly out of my mouth. So I fucking love this. He said, I'm flattered to have interest from Real Madrid, but I just signed my contract till 2029. I want to stay on Juventus. Juventus is my Real Madrid, and I want to get them to hopefully win the Champions League or win as much as we can, like the old Juventus. But having one of your bright stars say Juventus is my Real Madrid is what you want out of every player on the team. You want every player on the team to look at that badge as it's the best club, the biggest club in the world, and they don't want to go anywhere.
I just hope that feeling sticks with more Italians. We want them to stay in the league. We don't want them pulling Scamacas. So it's good to see Cambiaso out there doing that, and that's definitely why I got the band.
Yeah, and I said this weekend, I think he's my favorite player in the league. I love Cambiaso. He's again, I'm going to keep saying it. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the world very soon. And last point on this one, Douglas Luiz, another not great performance, and also should have probably received a red. He kind of elbowed somebody in the back off the ball. I don't know why it didn't even go to VAR.
Yeah, it definitely was like, I don't want to say punch. It was probably like a stab, like a little to the guy's back, but he was making the punch motion. That's what VAR is there for, to like review that and give him. He should have got a red card,
Yeah,
100%.
like regardless
Which
of whether it was like a very hard punch or
just the
nudge,
action
the
itself.
action itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Exactly.
And if that was the case, he would have been off of 3 games in a row, 1 PK given from a handball, 1 PK given to tie the game against Calgary, and then a red card. That would have been awful. Listen, his performance in this game, this was the first time he played the full 90. I thought it was better. He had 2 opportunities to score.
Oh,
One of them I thought he could have put in. Another one was a little bit tougher. The first header was what I thought he should have put in. But I did like what I saw from him. He was at least looking to break the lines, trying to make a pass, trying to pick out that pass to get Juventus the goal, but he's still not there. Hopefully it just more growing pains and it can continue. But I mean, now you're just making bonehead decisions on the pitch, punching a guy in the back, tackling a guy in the 18 for a PK, putting your hand up to protect your face. Like, those are just stupid decisions.
yeah. But before we move, I don't want to talk about this, but I just want to mention it. Juan Cabal played very well. He was the left back / left wing back. It was nice to see him in the team. Flipping the script to Lazio, I don't want to talk about them too much, just because like when you're down a man the whole game, not much like that you can do, right? You're kind of just stuck in there. They defended very well, and I think they can keep their heads up after this game and actually use it as, oh, we're really good at defending too. We probably should have gotten a point out of this game.
Yeah, I think
We're good.
they played it well enough to get a point, whether they were down or not. I think what they need to do now is take this game, use that when they after they go on their spurts of 2 goals in a row and maybe they're up 2-1 or 2-0. Hey, we don't need to necessarily go on the front foot and try to get a third. We can now sit back in a low block, be compact, and see this game out and then hit on the counter if needed. This was a really good game by Lazio, their best defensive game I've seen them this season. So I think, yes, it sucks that you let in that own goal, but there are a lot of positives for them to take away and continue to have overachieved this season than what we all thought that they could do.
The other point I do want to talk about on Lazio for 1 second is Nuno Tavares is insanely good. He was literally carving up Juve by himself to the point where every time he touched the ball, they just fouled him. Like it got to that point. Like he was getting the ball deep and just driving it into Juve's half regardless of if he had any help going forward and was taking everybody on, Juve should have gotten more yellow cards than they did. I will also say it was like, I know he didn't do anything, but this was the game that was like, oh my God, Nuno Tavares is really, really good.
He out muscled and out ran Thuram one time. Thuram got a yellow on him, basically tackled him. If Nuno keeps playing this way, I think Latito's going to have Inter, Juve, Milan, maybe some Premier League teams knocking on his door, and then Latito's going to do the classic 100 mil. You want him 100 mil. Classic Latito.
And then he's going to go off to Saudi, right?
Yeah.
Inevitably. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the red card happened, but what are you going to do? It was a red card. It was a terrible tackle from Romagnoli. He shouldn't have done that.
Great. Also, last point, and we'll move on to Inter Roma. Great recognition from Kalulu, who's kind of the new Riccardo Calafiori role of the Mata system, going up there and attacking the ball and probably would have scored. He said he would have scored if he didn't get fouled, but great recognition at least. And he's Kalulu's been a beast all season.
That's why he's on the way too early. Go ahead, Lugs.
Am I going to go or are you going to go?
You can go.
You want to go? You want to go?
Moving on, anyways, to the Inter Roma game. Folks, you want to set this one up here?
Yeah, we were talking about this game. Impossible game to really analyze. It ended up being very odd, really back and forth. Inter did win 1-0 very early on in the game. Marcus Thuram was basically 1v1 with the goalie. In our opinion, I think collectively it was a foul, probably a red card offense. Would have been 1v1. No VAR review, no foul called. I don't know what the fuck was going on. And more or less what happened in this game was Inter was just playing on the counterattack the whole game. They didn't want the ball. And ultimately, at one point, Lautaro Martinez had a volley. It was a good hit. It was a good counterattack. Went off of Dybala, actually, and that's why it went in. It kind of got deflected. And that was the story of the game. They went up 1-0 and just sat off in the shell. And that was it. They were done and dusted there. They were happy with what was going on. The other important thing to note is Roma Ultras boycotting again, didn't come in for the first 15 minutes. It kind of just shows the state of this club right now. I know Logs is very much on this club's in disarray. It's kind of panic mode. This was another game that from both sides, I thought it was very weak. It was a weak performance from both sides. And let's start with Inter Milan. Because for me, this is what they've been doing all year. They don't really bring the game to anybody. And they're kind of just playing on that counterattack. And I think that's why Thuram has had so many goals is they're so reliant on him to just run those channels and get the ball to him on the counter. And I need to see more from them, in my opinion, for them to be able to compete in the Scudetto and then compete at a European level, because I just don't think that this is going to last. It was weak for me.
Well, the problem is that they're still pulling out results with these performances, so they kind of need a shock to the system, I think, to really get going here. But I think that's really a storyline for a lot of good teams. They need to get the sense knocked into them. It's better to lose early than to lose late, and I think that this team, out of a lot of other teams, would do well with a loss, with a big loss, to get smacked in the nuts, because they really. I mean, again, this game should have been a draw. There was no way. I mean, they just got lucky. Lautaro, great hit. I mean, Svilar was man of the match, so that just goes to show, what was happening on the field. Inter just need to get smacked in the face, I think, to wake up here, to get everyone going, to get the juices flowing. They're still top, top of the table, top three. There's no reason for them to wake up. That's the problem. They played well in the Champions League. They're playing deep. They're getting results in Serie A. So for them to really turn it up and turn it on, I think that's what needs to happen.
I think that they did get somewhat smacked in the face against Milan, and then they did wake up a little bit in terms of getting results, right? They, ever since that Milan game, they've won 3 in a row, but they're not doing it in the way that they were doing it last year with the beautiful Calcio, winning every game 3-0, shutting every team out. Although they did finally shut out Roma this game. It's not hard to shut out Roma because they don't know what to do on offense. But I think Inter are slightly at least getting it back on page, but just in a very different way than last season, where it was, we're going to possess it. Everyone's just going to be all over the field. You're going to have no idea how to defend us. And no idea how to break us down. They're not doing that. They are like they're just kind of sewing them together somehow. It's not in a pretty way, which I don't think will they're not going to keep grinding out these results. I think it will catch up to them if they don't figure it out.
I don't know if
Especially
they go ahead.
well, especially now with a Cherby went down with a muscle
Yeah.
injury and Hakan went down with a groin injury. And
Yeah,
Hakan, I would say, is that one guy where it's like, oh shit, we don't have another Hakan.
And I think that's the big storyline for Inter in this game is that because in the first 10 minutes, we did see some of that like beautiful play where they were going long. Bastoni was phenomenal again in this game, like defended well, was very effective offensively.
He olayed Dybala.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Undressed him. And then what happens is Hakan goes down and Barella drops into that role and completely gone. They cannot play the way they wanted to play, I guess, at the beginning of the game. And Barella he clearly just doesn't understand that role. And I also don't think he has a skill set to play that role. Like he's not a long passer, he's not a pacer, he doesn't understand what to do. And that's a scary one now for Inter. Because if you don't have a guy that can control the game, and you need to control the game if you're going to win the Scudetto at points, and they didn't look like they could at all. It was very discombobulated once Hakan was out.
It might end up being Bastoni going forward if it's playing like that. But no, I mean,
They're gonna have to move
Hakan,
Bastoni to center back, or like a Cherby's out too. So
De Vrij played well though when he came in.
Vrij did play well when he came in.
I don't know. I think the injuries will give some guys a little bit of an opportunity to show themselves. Obviously, for Tezzy will get more time. Zalewski will get more time. Jan Bisek will obviously get a little bit more time. But another thing that I wanted to touch on, just because I've been noticing a lot this season, is managers' inability to sub correctly and just making odd changes during the game. Lautaro coming out in the 70th minute, you're only up 1-0. I don't know if that says more about Inzaghi's inability to manage the game, or if that just says a lot more about Thuram, that he's like, I'm fine with him staying out there. But I did think that was just odd that you're taking out Lautaro, the goal scorer, at the 70th minute. You're only up 1-0. What happens if Roma scores? Then you're back in the attack. Then you need him out there.
I was
Joaquin Correa is good. I'm not knocking Joaquin. I think he's a good player. I just think it's a weird move to take out your goal scorer in that kind of a matchup.
I was okay with it because I think he recognized that they were kind of getting their teeth kicked in a little bit and just wanted more legs to chase. And Thuram I don't know how he doesn't run out of energy. So I think that's what it was. So I was okay with it. Like they really weren't attacking all that much near the end, other than Dumfries when he came on. That was a great sub. I still think he should have started the game, but I was okay with that. I think it's more going forward. I don't know who's going to play that role, the Hakan role. I really don't know.
Neither do I. Also, I know it's a much more inferior opponent on coming up, but they got the Champions League as well, so they're probably just trying to get him rest where he can for Lautaro's sub. But
Plus, they got Juve next weekend.
yes, and they didn't want him going down as well with the Cherby and Hakan out. But switching it over to the other side in Roma are in absolute shambles. I mean, they can't figure anything out in Rome. The second you think, hey, maybe, nope, they don't have anything figured out.
Psych.
It's like my biggest takeaway from this game was why hire Ivan Juric, who plays a 3-5-2, if you have Dybala, Sule, and Pellegrini? Where do you play those three guys in a 3-5-2? Sule, you saw what Sule played in a 3-5-2 under Allegri. He was a wing back. You can kind of play Dybala as a second striker, but then that totally you're no longer having Sule on the field because he's going to want to shift over. Pellegrini, we talked about his form. If you're playing Dybala as a second striker, are you playing Pellegrini in the three midfielders and having him push up? Then your 3-5-2 is more like a 3-3-2-1. I don't even know what the formation is. Like it was a bunch of weird buys that didn't make sense, and a weird hire with Juric where it doesn't make sense with who you bought. And now their ownership is going to buy Everton. How committed are they to the Serie A and this Roma project? A lot to figure out in Rome.
It's a ton to figure out, and it's it was the same problems that De Rossi had. Like they're still defensively like decent enough. Like I thought Ndika was phenomenal in this game. I thought he did a great job defending Turan. Like you really can't ask for much more. That was an insane physical battle, and that was a really hard piece. So the defense still isn't the issue. They had the ball for most of the game and created nothing again, and that is continuing to be the problem. And I don't think there's ever going to be a way where you figure out Dybala and Sule. I really don't. They want to occupy the same space. We talked about this, Motts. Like if there was a game where you would play them both, this would be the one. Like that's where Inter's weakness kind of is behind DeMarco in between the space with Bastoni with Mkhitaryan on that side. Like that is clearly where you would attack. That wasn't really exploited at all. And I don't think Juric is in a position now because of where the club is at, where the fans are at, to make a big decision and
But
drop somebody like Pellegrini. I don't like. I think they would go ballistic if he did that. Like the fans would be like, "You can't drop Pellegrini. Like he's our captain." Like I thought Mancini wasn't very good in this game either. He deserved to be dropped. There was a lot of players that they almost need to just rotate the squad and take guys out. I still don't like Pizzilli playing so much. I don't really understand it.
he fell on that goal, on that
Yeah,
counter. He fell to the allow Inter to counter, which also the counter was like a halfway decent counter, but I wouldn't say that pass was very good at all. And Celik just fucking stumbled and allowed like put the ball right back in the middle, right to Lautaro, who smashed that home. Terrible defending by Celik. I listen, it's a freak accident, but you can't fall in that area as well because you're screwed. But going back to Juric, like Juric is not a coach who's going to scheme up offensively. Like you know what he wants to do. He's just cross the ball in. He at Torino they scored 36 goals last season. Like he's not that type of coach who's going to somehow magically implement some amazing offensive tactics to figure out this conundrum that they have up top. So that's another reason why are you hiring Juric and why did you quickly abandon De Rossi? There's a lot going on in Rome, and it's to the point now where I'm going to ask you guys two questions. Number one, are they already out of the top four race? Is it realistic for Roma to finish top four? And I forgot the second question, so we'll just do that one.
think about it. Think about it.
I mean, no, they're not. They're not out of the top four. They're 4 points behind top four right now. It's still early. I mean, we talked about it a lot already. The season doesn't really start until week 11. A lot of time to turn it around. My whole thing though is it just goes to show that I think that this De Rossi firing was made everything that was going on way, 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 way worse, and the fans agree.
I don't think they're out of top four yet. I think what's scary is everybody above them is playing much better than them. I mean, they don't look like they're capable of winning a game. They're very capable of not losing games, but there's nobody on the field that's going to go and get a goal. Period. Dybala played well in this game, but it was more defensively. He tracked back
Well,
well. He didn't.
there's nobody on the field that looks like they care besides Dybala. Like Dybala, you could see the frustration on his face, but nobody else to me really was like, "Oh wow, we lost." Like no one was like I didn't see that from anybody on the field. Not even just going to get a goal, like go get a result or go win. Like have some pride for the badge, which we know that De Rossi had such pride for the badge and was able to relay that to his team. These guys don't even look like they have any pride.
No, they don't. They really don't. And is that a Roma problem though? I mean, Roma have 2 Scudettos in their entire history. That
I mean, Roma's the fans are so passionate. It's one of the biggest
yeah,
clubs in Italy. They're at the capital of Italy. Like, I don't think it's a Roma problem. Like, it's there. I think it's an ownership issue, not having an idea of what the project is. It's a sporting director issue by not being on the same page as the manager with who we're bringing in, right? This is the first time in what 4 or 5, 6 years because Roma splashed the cash because due to their financial fair play, but they splashed the cash that made no sense who they're splashing the cash for. There wasn't a clear cut idea, and this I forgot which one of you guys has the opinion of don't go with the manager's idea because if he's sacked, you're screwed. this kind of goes to show me where it's like lean towards what the manager is saying, because if you're going to make decisions that don't make sense, you're going to be screwed with whoever you bring in.
I agree.
I know your point, and I agree. The recruitment they have kind of gotten wrong, but it just goes back to like squad building. Like your two best players kind of are supposed to be Sule and Dybala. They're the exact same player, and that's just poor squad building at its core. And I think what's not helping is Zalewski has been terrible every time he plays. And that's really like your bright spot off the left. So like
Well, it's
whenever
Zalewski and Pellegrini, and they're both terrible off the left right
El
now.
Shaarawy has been the best left-sided player of the whole season. Like it's just crazy. And I don't see it this I don't know what's gonna make this better is the problem. Because Dovbyk can't even do anything. Like we're not even getting to talk about him because he touches the ball like 4 times a game. I think at 40 minutes of the game was the first time Dybala even touched the ball in the offensive half. Like I don't even you have to just it's almost like you have to tear down everything you've created so far and start again because it isn't working.
Well, that's what happens when you buy mid guys, I guess. But I think the one thing that I'll say that's a bright spot for Roma, as I'd like to look ahead, is their schedule for the next six odd games is actually pretty promising. They have Europa League this week in Dynamo Kiev. Fine. They have Fiorentina. Tough. It's a tough game next week. I think they're at Fiorentina. They are.
That's a
So okay.
horrible game.
So you're that's not fun. But then you go on a streak of Torino, Verona, Union St. Galois, God knows where that is, and then Bologna, who's been terribly out of form. So they have a really long stretch here before they have to play Napoli, where they can really right the ship. They can get this going. I think they have to look deep inside. I really think that Pellegrini's got to figure his shit out. He's obviously the heart and soul. Whether he's that talented or not, I know we're high on him, but he's certainly the heart and soul. They need these guys, Mancini, to come out who really almost need like a players only meeting at this point, is what I would say, and really get them on the right page. Again, big win this Thursday would be huge for them. You go in, you're going to get your socks knocked off at Fiorentina if they continue to play the way that they're playing. But if they can get a couple of wins strung together before Napoli in November, we may be having a different conversation.
We might, but Bologna's been
Yeah.
they've been tough to beat. Like they usually get a tie. Torino is also a tough opponent as well. I know they just lost Zapata, but
Out of
and
form.
Fiorentina just put up 6 goals. So like you got it, and they almost lost to Venezia. They tied Monza. Like they tied Genoa. They've had games where they should have won and haven't. So what is to say that they're going to finally find their form, especially with Juric as their coach who doesn't create that much offensively. So Roma are in shambles. I would say they're very, very close to crisis mode. I don't think necessarily sacking Juric is going to solve their issue, though. So I'm not calling for his head, but I genuinely don't know what will solve their issue.
I agree. I agree. And let's go on to a team that is rolling. 2 teams that I would say are still rolling. Napoli went to Empoli and squeaked out a 1-0 win on a penalty kick that maybe shouldn't have been rewarded. I know Motts, you didn't think it was a penalty.
I did not. I thought it was a soft penalty. I did. I think that maybe gets called outside the box, but when you're inside the box, it needs to be a clear step on or egregious foul. I thought that did he leave his foot out like a little bit, but Politano dove the second that he saw the opportunity, which I just hate seeing. I hate seeing guys being coached up to dive to get that PK. And I just feel bad for Empoli because, and Napoli's my Gumar, right? I have them winning the league. Empoli deserved to tie this game. They deserve to get a point, and having the referee decide the game, giving Napoli PK just kind of grinds my gears on a soft one like that. If it's egregious, it is what it is. You shouldn't have done that. I didn't think that was egregious.
And on this game, I only have 2 questions because this was actually a great 1-0 game. I thought Empoli brought it to Napoli, which I did not expect to happen. They
They played
brought it to
better.
them. They
They
had a
played
lot
better.
of chances. And I'll start with them. I thought this was a flip of the script kind of game for Empoli. They just hosted Napoli at home and brought the game to them. which I did not expect at all. Like, how good are Empoli? Like, realistically, we were talking about, oh, they're not really as good as maybe Torino or Udinese. After this game, they might be the best of the rest.
Their roster is definitely good. They have their individual players are actually a lot better than what people think. Their wingers are phenomenal. Giassi Bozzella have had a great season, and I think they cause so much trouble for outside backs. There's a lot. There's not the depth of outside back in this league. I think has gone down, especially just given age of most of the players. And when you look at Napoli, I think that's the biggest example being Di Lorenzo and Spinazzola. But this Empoli team, that back three, having it together, dangerous on the outsides. And if their nines can get going, then yes, 100% going to be a dangerous team going forward. I mean, if they are able to implement this kind of aggressive attack in other games against teams that aren't on the top of the table, I think they're going to get a lot more success than just a 1-0 loss.
What I love from Empoli is like they're taking a slightly different approach than most Italian teams do, and they are actually playing young Italians and giving them a chance where most Serie A teams do not do that. And they're showing that, hey, you can play young Italians and get results. You don't need to go out and get old veterans to try to get results. Give the young guys a try. And I know Spalletti was at this game. Obviously, I mean, he's a Napoli guy, so but maybe he was out looking at some of those young Italians that Lowe's just mentioned. But also Conte's system is like one to sit back. I think that you can't allow you're going up against Empoli, you can't sit that deep as they did. Like Napoli had one shot on target to Empoli's 4. Like that's not okay if you're Conte and you're Napoli, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And at the same time, though, my other question is about Napoli because this is 4 wins in the last 5, and the one other result was a draw. 6 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, top of the table, 2 points clear of Inter, 3 points clear of Juve. In my opinion, they're significantly better than everybody else, even with this result.
Well, take this result. I mean, this is, and I talked about it earlier. Take this result. Napoli have Lecce at home, and you have Juve at Inter. Let's say that Juve and Inter is a draw, right?
Which it very
Napoli
well could be. Like, that's not a crazy.
Napoli win, and now they got a game and a point ahead of everybody. Like they're gonna start opening this lead, and with the defense so solidified, they've allowed 2 goals in the last 7 games, and they have Cavada. Lukaku started to like kind of dip down in form a little bit, got subbed out in the 60th minute, but I don't see that carrying on for too much longer under Conte. So they're finding their form and their stride.
One game a week.
That 1 game a week is getting scary. That lead is going to get stretched very quickly. But to run through the rest of the score lines here, Bologna did what Bologna do. They went to Genoa and tied the game 2-2. More the same from Italiano. When they score, they concede. When they don't score, they don't concede. Disappointing.
Yeah, more of the same. But that's what I'm saying. They get ties. They get
They
ties.
no, they do get ties. They're still a hard game. They just are fucking idiots half the time. Parmo went to Como. This game was actually at the lake, I will say.
It was at the lake.
This was a 1-1 game. Very entertaining game, though. I really enjoyed it. Nico Paz scored another one. Boli scored a phenomenal back heel goal. It was very good. Classic Parma counterattack off the right. So that was a good game. Atalanta went to Venezia, a game that we've been saying is very hard. They won that game 2-0. Retegui looked like the most complete striker he's been so far since I've seen him. Lookman looked great again. CDK almost scored. Atalanta is finding their groove now. That's 2 in a row. I hope it continues. We'll see. Motts, you had a question though?
Yeah, Retegi's chip was beautiful. But my question is, Retegui in the form he's in now, 2 questions. 1, do we think it can continue? 2, do we think when Scamacca comes back, it's still Retegi's spot at Atlanta and even at the international level?
Oh my God, yeah. It's not even a question. No, Retegui is really, really good. He's going to continue to be really, really good. And the reason being is he's not asked to do a ton. And he's really good at doing what he's asked of. He's just getting the job done that he signed up for. When he looked on LinkedIn and Atalanta had an opening for a striker that just needs to finish, he's like, I think I can do that. He applied, quick apply, got the resume out there, $25 million, done deal. And he's doing exactly what the bullet points asked of him. All he has to do is finish. And he's doing a little bit more than that in the hold-up play and whatnot. He's the most confident man of all time. I talked about it the last time I was on here. Striker is one of the most important positions to have momentum next to goalkeeper, and he just has the most confidence, the most momentum of anybody in Serie A right now, and hence he's Golden Boot.
I think you did him a little bit of a disservice there. He is doing a lot of things well, and I think he is already more of a complete striker than Scamacca ever was at any point. I think he's even hitting like an athleticism level that I didn't really know he had. He has like this explosive first step now, which I really didn't see, and I saw a lot of it in this game. I do think he can keep this up, and my main reason for that is the amount of service that Atalanta provide him. Like he is going to continue to get opportunities, and he's maybe going to get more opportunities than Thuram even. Like the way that Inter are playing, it's kind of these sporadic chances that just kind of fall around. Atalanta's are much more kind of calculated, and it's just getting it into the box. And one of the things that I love about Retegui that he's been doing is allowing CDK to play off of him and kind of do the work that CDK wants to do. And we're seeing Brescianini come back, and he's doing the work that he wants to do. And Retegui is finding a way to play around all these players, which is something that Scamacca was not very much capable of, regardless of how good he was last year.
Yeah, don't let my comments be a disservice. That's not my intention. I think what I want to now translate it to is he's being adaptive to where he's letting the other players around him be the creative player, create the chances of which he's gotten a ton of service, and he's just finishing it off. That's what I'm trying to get at. But he's doing the best job of all time, putting the balls in the net, which is what his job description is.
Motts, do you think they'll play Scamacca over him when he gets back?
I do not. No, I don't. I do not. I just
Good
wanted to know.
question.
I mean,
Good
what if his form dies down? You never know.
I don't think it will. Moving on, Laviola, Fiorentina went to Lecce, beat the fucking piss out of them, 6-0. We had two guys with a brace. One thing we were really happy about, Colpani finally off the line with the brace, but there was some negative news for Fiorentina.
Well, before we get to the negative news, this is what you're supposed to do when you're upper man for 45 minutes. You're supposed to beat the piss out of a team, and Juventus and Udinese should take notes on this. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, Lecce are bad for sure, which helps. But the bad news is that Moise Kean and Gudmundsson picked up a knock in this game. I haven't seen anything about the timeline just yet. I think Moise Kean was getting some more tests done. That's a little bit scary. You can't really lose both those guys with how this season has gone so far.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough to bounce back. But we don't. Let's wait to talk about that until we find out how long those injuries are.
Definitely. Another game. I have so much to say about this, but I'm going to dumb it down. This was my game of the weekend. Torino out Cagliari. We had 3 lead changes. This was an amazing game. Cagliari battled back. Tony Sanabria had the best performance I think I've ever seen. He was dropping into the midfield to pick up the ball. He netted a goal, really picking up the slack from Duvan Zapata. What I didn't like from the Torino perspective is getting away from what they were doing all season, which was being ball dominant. I thought this was a very immature performance from them. And on the flip side of things, a very mature performance from Cagliari, battling back, kind of showing that experience that a lot of these players do have. And the other interesting thing about this, I think there was 4 goals from set pieces. So that was interesting. And last game that busted my Culpi leg, Monza on the fucking board with a 3-0 win at Verona. Great result no matter how you cut this for Nesta. They definitely needed it, but a great result regardless of when this would have been in the season.
Did you see 2 of their goals? It was literally a goal kick, launch it 75 yards to the center back or the striker. He headed it on, and then it went like over the Hellas Verona's defenders, and then it was just a 1-on-1 with the goalie 2 times. It was crazy.
Yeah, but that's what we've been saying about Verona. They just they can't put it together every game. I don't understand it.
More teams should try to do that. It was real effective. You get like a 6'8" striker, head him the ball, and then flick it onto the
what I will say is Juric is a very good player. I actually really like him, the Monza striker. He's a big boy, very good. And Maldini and him Maldini didn't play in this game, but that should be a good partnership. If now that they have a win, maybe they keep rolling. I don't fucking know. It's Monza.
But Danny Mata, he had maybe goal of the week, and then he had the second one as well. That was off the so maybe Danny Mata and him have a nice partnership as well.
Yeah, very good.
That wraps it up.
The Danny duo.
That wraps up match week 8. We do got European games this weekend, so just to run you through those. Club Brugge going to AC Milan, as Logs called it already. Milan are going to
Big
win
game.
that one. Not so sure. Stuttgart going to Juve. Juve have been phenomenal in Europe, so they should net another one at home here, right?
I hope so. They're at home. They're a little banged up, but we are a better opponent and at home. I think Juve should snag 3 points out of this. Real quick, before you even continue, I really like 4 of these Serie A teams. Maybe a little Serie A parlay in the Champions League here.
You're going to single man Colpi here?
Could be doing it.
No, you can't.
Keep breaking the games down. I mean, who? The one I don't like is the last one.
Yeah, we're going through them. We're going through them right now. Young boys going to Milan to play Inter. Shout out Dylan Brand for young boys, but they're gonna get fucking mashed by Inter. This is an Inter 3-0 win, run away with it kind of game.
Yeah, shout out Dylan Brand. Those were our jerseys for EA FC 24.
Yeah, young boys. Celtic going to Bergamo to play Atalanta. Celtic have been very bad a lot of this year, so I expect Atalanta to run away with them. Atalanta have also just been very good in Europe to start the year. And then Bologna going to Villa, Aston Villa, for those of you who don't know who the villains are. Bad game for Bologna. Aston Villa are very good.
The villains, mate.
Maybe Bologna can do what they do and get a tie.
I don't have faith.
Dude,
I have no
the
faith.
villains are so hot right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, this is a bad one.
Bologna is the opposite of hot.
Yeah. Going to the Europa League, Dynamo Kiev is going to Rome to play Roma. Another game. I have no confidence in Roma to win games anymore, so I'm not even going to say that they should win this.
You got to get that
I don't know
game.
anything about
You
Kiev,
have to get that game.
They have to.
Rome are just, they can't even get results at home. Man, we were so high on this team coming into the season.
I know, we're a bunch of bums for putting them at 3. I don't know what our problem is.
But a team that we were not high on that is just dominating is Lazio, the other team in Rome. Who are they playing? 20? How do you pronounce this?
I think it's Twent. I don't know. I think they're French, but they're going there. I think Lazio are going to win.
Lazio have given us no reason to think that they're going to lose this game. Before the game at Juventus, they had 12 goals in the last 3 games. Against Nice, they put 4 away in a pitch that was underwater, and they just showed everybody that they can also defend. I think Lazio win this game for sure.
If we did a power rankings right now, I think Lazio would be in my top 4. I think they're that good.
We just did one a week ago.
Oh, they were in my top 4?
4th, yeah.
Oh, good. They might break up higher than that.
Were you even on the pod?
I don't know. I just feel so good about them against anybody they play. They especially after that Juve game, they're just very, very good. They could go far in this competition, is my point.
I agree. I'm in agreement.
And then going to the Conference League, Fiorentina is going to I think it's Gallon. I think this is
Let me tell you something. I now understand why Fiorentina is always in the Conference League finals, because what the fuck are these teams they play every week? Every week we got this team that we have never heard of that they're going up against.
Yeah, but this one's weird because they're not going to have, I presume, they're not going to have some of their star players in Gudmundsson and Keane, who have been scoring a lot of goals.
I mean, based on the teams that these guys have been playing, they can drop some points.
We didn't even get a chance to do this, though. Shout out Palladino. Good couple of results here. Like big moments. We have been questioning him. Big couple of weeks for him, and I'm really happy that it's going this way, because I do love this Fiorentina team, and I'm happy that we have a coach in Palladino who's really doing something different, and it's nice.
Agreed. Palladino, attaboy.
I would just be careful. St. Gallen, one of those Western European teams out of Switzerland, if you can even count Switzerland as Western European, in the middle of God knows where. Those fans get rowdy. I be saying it. I said that about what was it, Elford? That Roma lost that game. I'd be careful.
They tied.
I'd be careful. To Elford?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a good result.
But he'd be saying it.
I'd be saying it.
We're done, guys. We'll be back on Wednesday breaking down what happened in some of the European games, and we'll be back to giving you the preview And the Colpi will be back. We maybe should scrap it with how it's gone, especially Motts. You should just take Juve money line. I don't even know who they're playing yet.
They're playing Inter
Like, Inter,
in the San Siro.
Money
They're like
line.
plus, I already looked. They're plus 310. Imagine I throw 100 on that.
Well, you have to because you've been signing off, though. Lugs, tell everybody what the hell is going on here.
Paisans, it's been a pleasure. I will not be seeing you Wednesday, but my Colpi leg will be featured. I will be seeing you next week. But in the meantime, you know where to find us on all the socials: X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and live on all your favorite streaming services, Apple Pods and Spotify. So with that, off to next week. Motts, 1 second.
Motts, we should do YouTube live for Inter Juve this weekend.
Oh wait, it's on at 1:00 on Sunday. So the issue with that is like I'll probably have people in my apartment then. But
You can come here.
yeah, but you'll have people at your apartment too.
Nah,
We'll give you an update on Wednesday. I just thought about
we'll
it and
figure it
want to
out.
put it on people's radar.
But wanted to give a quick check-in on the stats of the Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. How many subscribers on YouTube are we at now, Vos?
What was it, 63 subs?
I think we're at 63 subs and almost 200 views on our last one, last 2 weeks ago.
And 97 5-stars on Spotify.
90, and then 24, I believe, or 23 on Apple Music. So we need to get the Apple Podcast. Sorry, we need to get the Apple Podcast up more. But we really appreciate the subscribes and the 5 stars. Please continue to like, comment on YouTube, especially because it really allows us to grow. We really appreciate it. And do not be a Gagoose and Forza Calcio Culture.